I call this public meeting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Welcome everybody to our October meeting. We did have several people sign up to speak tonight, so I'm going to read one comment, public comment participation rules that will be for all 4 speakers. So thanks for coming tonight to share your opinion. A few rules of order regarding the public comment portion of the meeting. According to board policy, each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak. When necessary for effective meeting management or to accommodate large numbers of individuals wishing to address the board, we may make adjustments to these. There are no adjustments tonight, so you each will have three minutes to speak. The speaker may also provide a written statement to the board to supplement his or her comments if desired. We'll have our board secretary holding up time cards that'll give you the time you have remaining, and I believe it will also be on the screen above your head, but if not, Liz has those for you. The board may not ask or answer questions or make any comment regarding public comments not associated with posted agenda items. The board may respond with specific factual information, or existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries on a posted agenda item. Please note that to comply with FERPA laws on student privacy, you may not mention a student by name. Additionally, according to board policy, you may not make derogatory comments about any individual staff member, either by name or title. Should you need to file a complaint, you may also do this through our formal grievance process outlined in board policy. So having said that, we do have 4 speakers I mentioned. The first one is Ryan Mayo, coming to speak to us on Fccla Updates. Welcome, Ryan.
Did I just start?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Ryan Mayo. I'm the Region 2 Vice President of Membership in the Boswell Chapter Vice President of Family Career Community Leaders of America. Throughout this year, we have multiple community service projects planned. We just finished up with one of them, which is where we make mums for 26 of our Boswell special needs friends, and we go and present them to them. Another one is our winter wear drive that we do every year. We collect coats, jackets, hats, blankets, and we go and we work with another one of our chapter officers, churches, to go and donate to the homeless. We would like to thank you for letting us travel and compete. This has allowed our members to make over $12,500 in scholarships just last year, and allowed another one to make over $3,000 in scholarships to the University of Idaho. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Like our special speakers on special education inclusion. It's Amaryllis Ferrer. Board, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amaryllis Ferrer, mother of 2 students here in the district, one of them with disabilities. We have been part of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD since 2017. Today, I have the courage to present myself to you as a supporting mother and with great desire to achieve inclusion and the proper services, not only for my son, but for all other special education population in our district. To get here, I had to understand how important my active role is in my son's, how important is my role in the special education decisions, and that there is no one better than me to advocate for him. In August 2018 and November 2020, my son suffered 2 injuries at school, one of them causing severe trauma to his arm and requiring surgical intervention. As of today, we don't have clear reports that show us explain what happened to our son in the classroom on those 2 occasions. However, that gave me the strength and courage to empower myself. to be more active member on my son educational decision. My family and I represent two minorities in our district. We represent Spanish-speaking families and special education families. I have noticed how our district focuses individually on those minorities without understanding how important it is for Spanish-speaking students and special education students to receive services and supports in their language, in their native language, or to have resources to help them acquire the language while receiving services for special education. I have also noticed how much lack of inclusion and empathy we must develop for our special education students. As a mother, as a typical child, I'm also excited to see how our district invests in facilities, programs, and technology. But at the same time, it is frustrating me how that we don't involve our special education students in this awesome ideas. We must think outside the box and begin to create inclusive environments. We must be including every idea, every plan, every celebration, every event in our district and our schools. As a mother leader, I hope that our special education department has the commitment to create alliances and committed with the partners like me with the purpose to achieve better results through inclusion and helping a special education family to be active and fundamental part in the special education process of our Spanish-speaking students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is regarding transparency, Doug Miller. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Before you start the timer, I just need to get a clarification because I was handed this when I walked in. You read this today. Your published policy on your website, 220918, states 5 minutes, not 3 minutes. So that may be something that you need to address because I arranged my comments based on what your published is, not what I got handed to when I came here.
We set that each meeting. It also, I didn't finish the reading, but it also says it could be adjusted down to 1 minute.
Right,
So,
I understand that, but with
okay.
4 people speaking.
Right.
And
Go
you
ahead.
have a published policy of 5 minutes, and then the public finds out when it shows up here, it's 3 minutes. Because I did the research on your website. Your board policy states 5 minutes.
All right, proceed.
And since that it goes right into what I'm speaking with tonight about. My name is Doug Miller. I live on Harbor Point Circle. I've lived here for about 4 years. I promised my wife that I retired from being involved in politics in 2014. We moved, bought a big lake house, enjoying my retirement from it. But everything that's going on in the last few weeks when it comes to school boards and everything else, said, you know, I ought to look into my local school board. Just got my tax bill for $10,000 to Eagle Mountain ISD last week. And I says, well, let me get on the website and see how they're spending that money. Well, your website gives me a 1-page printout on what your budget is, $270-odd million. I don't even know how many full-time employees you have, what those full-time employees, what departments they go to. I'm kind of a budget hawk. I was first elected to a city council when I was 29 years old, spent over half of my adult life in public service. I know how to read a municipal or a school district budget. I don't even have that opportunity. There's not a check register as required by Texas law online anywhere on your website. If you search check register, I get a high school class that's teaching kids how to balance their checkbooks, which I applaud. I think that every high school should be mandated that they learn this. But if I want to delve into it, do I have to do a Freedom of Information Act request when it could simply be online in this day and age, 2021? I think it should be. This is a fast-growing district. I moved from a fast-growing district. When I first moved to Keller, we had 3,500 people. When I moved away, we had 46,000. The school district had 1 high school. My business partner graduated from Keller High School when it had like 30 people in his graduating class. I had 2 kids graduate from Keller High School, and both of their classes were over 1,500. I know how it's hard in a fast-growing district. But people that pay $10,000 a year in school district taxes pay a heck of a lot more attention than people pay $800 a year. I suggest that the district get their act together, become more transparent to the people that pay the salaries and pay the overhead in this district. Because the last thing I want to do is break the promise to my wife and get back involved. Because May's coming, and I could very well do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Our next speaker is on the TAD election. Daniel J. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, welcome back.
Well, thank you, sir. Superintendent Chadwell, President Newcomb. I'm good to see y'all, the whole board tonight. I'm here because we're at that time of year, that time of rotation, and that election on November 1st will get a ballot. I think there's 11 people running this time. You supported Mr. Lasada last time, and I know I've always said he's willing to come up here and meet with you all one-on-one, come here to be able to exchange dialogue with you if you put him on the agenda. The only thing that's changed on his resume is now he has one 2-year cycle under his belt. There's been quite a few things that have occurred that are good. For instance, in the sake of transparency, you can now go onto the TAD website and listen to the audio. Whereas before, you'd have to do an open records request. You can actually go look at the agenda packet online. You'd have to do an open records request. The only thing that was ever posted online at TAD was the agenda, so that's changed. Also, there's a $50,000 threshold where contracts, whether it be an individual or a vendor, now comes to the board. Where in the past, Mr. Law could just sign. I'll give you an example. Kurt Myers is a software consultant. He's been hired since 2015, around $103,000 a year for the past 6-7 years, babysitting that software, which was never disclosed as part of the cost of the software, but there he sits. But now that contract has to go to the board. It did. For other reasons, it was approved. That's how it should work. And you can thank Mr. Lasada and Mr. Dion for that. I think I sent an email out about council. And that's one of the things I'd like to address with you. That was very contentious because there's been an overlap with legal advice within the district. And I remember Ms. Ring sending me a questionnaire back in 2017 when I ran about how would I have navigated the software switchover. And one of my things I replied to is have separate counsel for the taxing entities, because you need your rights protected. The outcome for the district and the outcome for the taxing entities aren't always necessarily equal. And that was, but now we finally have a budget item for $40,000. They're going to speak hopefully in November about who has applied or how the district has reached out for applicants to apply and choose somebody going into next year. I hope you'll continue to support Mr. Lasada. There's other things I could tell you about, but my time is up, and I'd like to thank this board for everything they've done since 2017. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. That concludes the oral individuals wishing to address the board. We'll now move to the TASB convention update. And it's an opportunity for anybody here that wants to share. And usually we just go down the line and start with the youngest board member that in terms of service, which would be William Bowes. So William, you have anything you'd like to share?
It was a good weekend. I learned, my nickname is now Title IX. I learned so much about Title IX. That's what people are calling me now. So anything you need to know, just come to me. But no, that's what I learned, mostly about Title IX. So it was good.
All right. Liz?
Well, I attended Prosper ISD that has set up a police department within the district, and it was very informative. And they talked, well, they're pretty expensive, but they didn't start out that way. But it was nice to get that side of what they're doing and how successful they are.
All right. Paige?
I had the same one. That was one I was going to highlight. I thought that was the best session I attended all weekend,
Oh, right.
especially what we're considering here. So it was really neat to see one another district could be very successful in that implementation.
I attended a couple of regular courses, but I also my majority of my time was spent at Leadership TASB. I was selected as one of 36 across the state to participate in Leadership TASB, which is a learning to advocate across the state, and I met a lot of nice people from all over and heard from schools as small, 125 students total, and then there's Richardson ISD that has 30-something thousand, 40, I think it's 55,000 actually, it's maybe even more than that. So it was interesting to share those stories. We're reading a book called In Search of Common Ground, and we're doing a book study on that, which is the title is Search for Common Ground, Conversations About the Toughest Questions in K-12 Education. So we've just begun that book, so I'll give you guys more about it, but I enjoyed it very much, and one down and 4 more sessions to go.
Hang in there, Marilyn. It'd be nice to have another master trustee on the board. So, yeah, it'd be good. I'm hoping that's a good course. I went to several of them, some of the same ones y'all did. The one I'll highlight was an SBOE panel. They were talking about charter veto power and how they were fighting the commissioner for charter veto power. They had a public ed bill on it, but it died in committee. They said there's been 26 years now of charter schools, and that they can now compare the results of charter versus public schools. And since Marath has come to office, they've opened 800 campuses of charter schools. That idea got an unclean audit, but no one can see that like they get to see our audits. And then they emphasize a lot about ILT moving into Cleburne, and that it had a lot of D and F ratings, but they were still allowed to expand. So it was just an update on what charter schools are doing in Texas, and I thought that was of some interest since we seem to be fighting those or dealing with those around here, not quite fighting them, but having to deal with the consequences of them coming into a district. So I think we all enjoyed different parts of the conference, but we all enjoyed it nonetheless. I did get my hours in. I know all y'all were ahead of me. Some of y'all were already finished. The one that I did need that we talked about that I had to need Becky, they didn't even offer that class, so I'll have to figure out some other way to get it. There was one required hour I had to have. I believe it was on sexual harassment or one that y'all got in summer leadership, and it wasn't offered at the meeting, so I'll get that some other way. All right, anything else on that? Good. Next is a finance report, and we'll call on Mr. Rob Welch. Actually, we're going to do the annual delinquent tax collection report, so he's going to probably call on Ebony, but go ahead.
Let me pull this up for us real quick. All right, trustees, just excited to be in front of you tonight, and with us tonight from Purdue, Brandon, Fielders, Collins, and Mott is Ebony McCain and David Garner, providing our delinquent tax collection report and for the last year. And so without further ado, I will just turn it over to them to walk through and share the information that they brought to us.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Dr. Chadwell, we're here to give our exciting annual report. We're so grateful that you allow us to be partners with this district. And tonight I have my associate David Garner with me. He has been with the firm how many years now? Is this your
year and a half now?
Year and a half now. David is very hands-on. He's a big part of our collections process. In fact, he oversees it. He also handles the Tarrant County docket for you guys, and I just wanted him to be here and also recognize his efforts as far as collecting your delinquent tax collections. We'll just go ahead and start with 2019, the levy that was turned over to us. We all know that 2019 was a bit of an anomaly year with COVID. Your taxpayers are always amazing. Only 1% of the roll, unfortunately, gets turned over to me. They usually always pay on time. So that's what we had to work with. Not many changes this year. These are the collection statistics through 6/30 of 2021. We've collected 67.9 of your roll. There's a remaining $491,000. Some of that is because during COVID, there was a suspension of sales, so we could not sell property, and some courts even shut down, so we weren't able to get taxes heard on the docket. I think they've got it worked out pretty well where we're back in person now in some courts, but they've got the whole Zoom feature figured out, and they've figured out how to do the sales. We're working hands-on with Mr. Welch. He does a great job of making sure that we don't do anything to embarrass your constituents and make sure we treat them with courtesy. Every suit that we want to file on, whether it's a homestead or business, Mr. Welch always approves that, as well as our sales. So again, it's a little bit more than it normally is, only just because some of the courts were shut down and we weren't able to actually file suits and we weren't actually able to sell property. That is changing now as the world is starting to open up again. But again, we're going to work directly at the direction of Mr. Welch to make sure that we're sensitive to your taxpayers and the COVID-19 circumstances. I'm sure that none of this is a surprise to anyone. Okay, with our 2020 levy, again, your taxpayers don't give me a lot to collect on, 1%. That seems to be the standard. And this year, unfortunately, the district was affected by a large bankruptcy. So we've collected to date 41.5% of your roll. The remaining 919,000, unfortunately, almost half of that is tied up in one bankruptcy. It's MSK Real Estate LLC. It's a combination of two real properties. It's about $431,000. The good news is that the lead attorney for the firm, myself, on the bankruptcies also handles all the bankruptcies as well. I will be going to court on that case on Thursday. They have a motion to dismiss the case. If the case is dismissed, we will go ahead and forward that to our litigation department immediately, and we'll go ahead and file suit. We won't even wait to do this. The tax years in this bankruptcy are 2019 as well as 2020. So again, that's, almost half of what's remaining is just tied up in a bankruptcy that we can't do anything about right now. But again, on the 28th, it is set to go in front of the judge to be dismissed. If it is dismissed, we will move forward with collections and go ahead and turn that over to our litigation department. If for some reason it still stays in bankruptcy, I've already filed a proof of claim. I'm already ready to go to make sure that our claims are included in the plan so that we still will get paid, along with 12% bankruptcy interest. I know that's a lot. Is there any questions? Okay. So here's a breakdown of your complete account, and you have 3,960 properties total that make up your delinquent roll. As you can see, there's a breakdown of what we have owed in trust. Those are properties that are being managed that were either struck off a long time ago that are in the name of the actual district, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw. You have 3.5% in deferral. Your bad addresses are only 1.6%. Again, David is in charge of pretty much our whole call center and litigation process, so he oversees that. He does a great job in doing that. Action pending, 582,000. That's what we're actually working in litigation. Again, the courts, even the ones that aren't open, they are operating completely virtually, so we're able to file suits as well as start to sell property. In bankruptcy, we have 12.8% of the roll, but the biggest thing I want you guys to pay attention to is the 494. That's also going to include that MSK real estate property that I was talking about. And that is your delinquent tax report. Do I have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, I will
Appreciate y'all.
continue to provide a
Thank
30-day update to Mr. Welch as well as what's going on with that bankruptcy.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is the budget status. Mr. Welch.
Thank you. Trustees, just want to give you a quick status update on where we are in the budget process. Obviously, this time of year, we're working in 2 different years. We have our prior year that's under audit review and preparing for the audit, I should say, as we are working obviously with that year, but then we're also working in the current year. So a quick update on the 2021 budget. We're looking at a estimate of about $6 million potentially in fund balance this year, along with there's still some remaining expenditures that may fall into the accrual, and we're reviewing those, which may impact that number. We would expect, if anything, it could go up. One of the things to understand with that is we've had a lot of ESSER monies come through, and the effects of how those are applied. Revenues may hit, but the related expenditures may not hit until the next year. So we've got some fluctuations there in what the actual recurring amount of the fund balance may be. So as we look at our projections and as we look at fund balance, this indicator is something that we can't look in isolation and think that this is an indicator where we ended up for the year. It's really something that we have to look at in the context of 3 or 4 years in our planning, because of just unique little timings with the way different funds, especially the ESSER funds, are impacting us. For instance, the quick little update on ESSER 2, and that is that our original allocation was $5.9 million. The Texas Education Agency has worked through their calculations on how they are reducing those districts that received ADA hold harmless. They will reduce your ESSER 2 monies effectively for that amount that you received in ADA hold harmless. So our $5.9 million ultimately is only going to be $1.6 million in additional monies related to or due to ESSER 2. And so again, that's a recent development. We wanted to share that and let you know that we are putting that into our calculation and our projections and how we're impacting the year in future years. We roll to the current year. We have obviously the most important thing we have to look at in as far as an indicator is enrollment, and that right now, as we budgeted on a projected enrollment of 22,281, we're on target. That as of October the 12th, we're at 22,366. So we're above that target. That's an indicator. That's not necessarily what we get paid on. We get paid on average daily attendance for the entire year. And so as we look at that indicator, or that next level of predictor, our first 6 weeks total, the percentage that we normally see for EMS ISD is about a 95.5% average across the year. That's been our typical in regular years. So right now, that first 6 weeks, we came in at 91.47%. A lot of that is, we believe, ties to, well, 3%, 3 basis points, 3 percentage points of that difference between 91 and 95 was related to COVID-related absences. So as we are moving out of the Delta variant and seeing some recovery, we're hoping that we'll bounce back closer to that 95.5% for the rest of the year. But nonetheless, that's something that we obviously are monitoring, and how that impacts our projections for the end of the year, which is what our funding is actually based on. A couple of things that we are tracking and just kind of to know what we're seeing in the state. Right now, we have some concerns with state appropriations that are less than what the anticipated expenditures are for those at the state level. So for instance, the formula transition grant, what was appropriated for that by the state is not going to cover, is not anticipated to cover what the requirements under the funding formula would be for districts like EMS ISD. Same thing goes with fast growth allotment. So with those, we're having to watch and see how things work out, and we're anticipating that those allotments will be prorated and we won't get the full allotments this year tied to those. So again, that's something we're having to monitor. That will play out a little bit more as the state gets the first sets of data from districts through the PEEM snapshot process. So, mid-year, come December and January, we'll be able to share more information on where we think that will play out. The other item that is significantly impacting school districts, not just EMS ISD, is that the technology instructional materials allotment, what we call TEMA or IMA, if you're around when it first came into existence, it was reduced about 60%. And so that's a concern, because we're talking about $700,000-800,000 that we would otherwise have, and to handle instructional materials, textbooks, licenses, things along those lines. At the same time, we have adoptions, and we're growing and opening new campuses. Those needs aren't going away. In fact, some people think that because of the move to remote and the push for technology within the instructional programs, and having devices would reduce our textbook costs. But the reality is that it actually ends up the licenses to provide the same textbook is actually roughly about the same cost, if not more. But you also have the infrastructure cost of supporting the technology. So it's a much more conducive way of providing technology of instruction, but it's not necessarily a cost saving. So those are areas that we want to continue to look at and focus on, and look, in our multi-year projections, that's something that we're taking into account, is a potential reduction in not only for this year and next year being the biennium, but then until we have another legislative session, we don't know what will happen in future years. So that brings future opportunities to come back and visit with the board. Again, ESSER funds and the planning around ESSER, as those monies become available, and we're able to align the expenditures, appropriate expenditures, with the different ESSER programs. That's given us an opportunity to make some enhancements or adjustments to the budget to meet all the requirements, eligibility requirements within those funds. So we expect to see some changes with a budget amendment at an upcoming board meeting, as well as we do have the rollover expenses, some of the $6 million that we talked about in the fund balance for the current year, or the year we just finished up, that we're currently working on the audit on. Some of those funds will probably come back out as rollover expenditures that were budgeted for and ordered in the prior year, but because they're not received until this year, they have to be expended in this year, and they're not in this year's budget, they're in last year's budget. So we'll have to move that budget over and pull those monies out of fund balance in order to pay for those. So that will be a budget amendment probably in either next month or December. And then the other item that you may see in an upcoming budget amendment is the investment in energy cost mitigation. That's the power factor correction equipment. I think that you have a report on that tonight, and that would be something, if that's of consideration, that would be obviously another budget amendment to consider in investing in some cost savings in the future. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those. Otherwise, I'll end this budget status report.
Mr. Welch, is our district picture Is that dated in October where we,
The snapshot for PEMS data, yes, it is in October. I believe that's still the last Friday in October. Looking around for the PEMS people. Yes, and then we have about a month or so to collect and certify that. And then once it's sent to the state starts pulling all those totals together.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. I believe you have the next one also, the annual review of the investment policy.
All right. Quick change here. All right. So, trustees.
What's this?
Let me grab my notes on that real quick, if you don't mind. All right, so again, this is something that you may or may not have seen before, but this is a component of our Public Funds Investment Act. We are bringing the district's investment policy for an annual review by the board. As provided in your packet, the investment policy includes both legal and local provisions. Since we have not made any changes to the policy in the last year and do not have any recommended changes at this time, we will be brief in this review. Legal policy focuses on requirements and limitations, or even prohibitions, both for the district in carrying out the investment policy, but also in reference to specific investment instruments. For instance, government investment pools and CDs are allowable in most cases, but mutual funds and corporate bonds, while they are allowed, will have some specific limitations on them. In the local policy, it provides for the district's philosophy in how funds are invested. So as stated on page 2 of the policy, or page 43 in your board book, overall the stated main goal of the district's investment program is to ensure that the investments are safe and maximize the financial returns within the current market conditions in accordance with policy. Still have to stay within policy. Balanced with that is the goal to maintain liquidity sufficient to meet anticipated cash flow requirements. Two key provisions to affect that are: one, that the district may maintain internally created pool fund groups such that they have a maximum weighted average maturity of 3 years or less, and any individual investment shall not exceed a 3-year maturity unless approved specifically by the board. So in regards to the fund groups, primary investment objectives of the operating funds being our general fund, and the custodial funds, which would be like our student activity funds. They are to be safety, their primary objectives are safety, liquidity, and the maturity sufficient to meet the anticipated cash flow. When we talk about our debt service and capital project fund groups, their focus is on liquidity to meet the related payment obligations. So the district invests in general, and in general, the district invests in governmental finance pools that provide the necessary level of liquidity and security within the portfolios that they manage. We also utilize a separately managed portfolio provided by PFM Asset Management, where we assign funds available for longer maturities to capture higher yields based on market conditions. All this information is reported in quarterly investment reports to the board, the last of which was provided at the August board meeting. So with that information and summary of the investment policy, I will conclude the review, noting that on page 22 in your board book, as you see here on the screen, there is a resolution to the fact that the board has convened and reviewed the investment policy. As we plan to provide for the action on this item on an annual requirement in the future, you will see this resolution in next month's consent agenda. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise,
Well, if anybody has a question now, or if you have one prior to the next meeting, we would be approving this at the next meeting. So thank you, Mr. Welch.
thank you very much.
That brings us to operations report and a construction update. Mr. Cleet Welch.
So we'd like to go over our projects that we have updates for this month. We have the new administration building. And as you can see, a lot of ironwork continues on this site. You have the picture on the left, and on that left is the building C that you see. It's in progress and it's moving along. They're working on the main structure where the ed services will be located. They're currently working on that. On the bottom right is the mock-up, and they continue to work on that to, the architect will okay that to make sure everything is approved. And then those things get carried over in the main building. This is in area C on the top left. They're working on the roof structure and the fire suppression system, roof decking. And on the bottom one, you have the, that's the Discovery Lab, one of them, and the main little lobby down there between the Discovery Labs. So a lot of CMU block being put in place. Of course, it's always raining. So that's the bottom lower level. And again, that just continues. The bottom left one's kind of what I was talking about a while ago with the ironwork. And then you have the staircase going down from the middle level down to the lower level. And it's the elevator shaft on the left, and then you have some of the mechanical rooms and the storage that is in that lower level. So there's a lot of storage and space underneath. And moving on to Boswell. So our two pictures on the left, we went to go take them. Of course, we couldn't get in because they were doing all the waxing. So we just took pictures of the sign. So this was 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. And then we talked, you see the workers on the big part of the stadium that they're working on that canopy. So they continue to work on that part of it also. They were doing a little bit of cleanup maybe that day. The turf room continues to progress. It is not moving like we want it to move. As you notice, it doesn't have the turf in there yet. That's one of the last things they need to do as far as they need to get all the heavy equipment out of there. So they've had to bring in some more gravel to lay in there. So they're doing that now. And there's some in our drawings on the, where it connects to the Newcomb gym. There were some things left out on the plans architecturally. So they're having to resolve those. So then you have to wait in line to get those parts, and you know we're dealing with the same kind of parts and materials delivery that everybody's struggling with. So this project is continuing to fall behind. So we're looking at Christmas, probably around January 1st when we feel like we'll take over this building. In the bottom picture, you see the plywood. So both sides of those have been put in, and that's where it'll have the state of Texas, home of the Pioneers. They did continue to work on the little section next to the concession stand where they have the planters and the walkway. But it doesn't look like they're going to be finished before the regular season, 2 weeks to go. But we'll continue to try to get to that point.
With all these things going on, will we consider having playoff games there or not? Hosting them?
I don't,
Chisholm's a hot spot.
Yeah, Chisholm, I know, is always their first choice if it's open.
Yeah.
Is Saginaw second and then Boswell third, just because of the location?
Location, probably. But it's, I mean, we could have those games.
I just wondered if you had thought about what way we were going to go on those.
And just some more things that are going on. I mentioned the top right, that's where the planters are going. Also, you have the ADA ramp in that area. And then on the bottom right, you can see where the visitors have to go through that area to get into the stadium. But you can also see that little retaining wall, and also that's the drainage area for the new part they're putting in. And just some finished work on the fencing that goes down that south side by the ticket booth. You can't see the ticket booth in that picture. Dedication plaques inside the main building. So it's been put up. We'll continue to work on the punch items. We're working with the architect, working with the builder on the final change order for this project. So we'll be coming to you next month with that document. Now this part here, the Orchestra Pit, that's not part of the stadium, but this was one of the summer projects. So this one's been completed. So we want to make sure y'all can see that. And so that's the Winger brand that they came in and worked on the stage part of it. And he also, earlier we talked about the second floor, the new chairs are in that also. So there was good work on our summer projects, even though we didn't get as far as we wanted to. A lot of the flooring projects came in with a good price, plus we were able to move those projects up, and which we've tried to do in everything. So you get some savings from the standpoint, you know, you move it up, it doesn't cost as much because we planned it for that inflation. So, you know, roughly around $5 million, we've had savings in those areas. So we're happy with that. You know, there's always give and take in the construction. Some of those projects come in, some are a little more challenging. So Jackie, we had a problem with this one because there was really no way to show all the logos. So Jackie still does our pictures, so she had to go buy a drone. So she did do that, so she had a new toy. But those are beautiful fields. They're and so, you know, they'll just get year-round play on them now, so the weather won't be as a big an issue there. But they're just kind of finishing up a little bit of the final phases in that. Ed Wilkie. So, you know, we've had I've never had a fence around it, and so it's still open to the public, but it's a little harder to get in there now. We've had some damage from vehicles getting on that field. I remember in the winter storm, 2 vehicles got onto it. We were just lucky, didn't tear it up. So we put in that to increase the safety factor of the larger vehicle. So it's a little more inconvenient to go around to the front of this, next to the building, but we've kind of been forced to do that. Any other questions?
Well, thank you, Cleve. Okay. Next operations report is a power factor correction project update. Mr. Dwayne Jones, welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Mr. Newcomb, trustees, and Dr. Chadwell. This project was originally brought to you in December of 20. And this is also the project that to which Mr. Welch referred to earlier in his presentation. So being that long ago, I'll just give you a very brief recap of exactly what it is. So power factor, in its simplest definition, is basically the mathematical ratio between the amount of electricity or power that's delivered to a load or a building, let's say, versus the amount of power that's coming out into the building and what's usable. So as power is delivered, it's what in the industry they call dirty power, and then once it goes through the system, it actually comes into the building, and that's the clean power. So anything that's operating at less than 95%, the electrical provider will charge the district a surcharge, a fee for that. And so the operations department, and along with our district energy manager, we did a review of the last 12 months to see what we were paying in those fees. And a conservative estimate is right around $100,000 annually that we pay in surcharge fees specifically for this. So the power factor project is to help correct that. It won't probably 100% eliminate it, but it will certainly lessen the amount that we are needing to pay. So at the December 2020 meeting, we talked about the next step. We would need to go and have a company go out and actually do a survey of the meters that we thought might be candidates for that. And so we did procure Gray Bar through a purchasing cooperative. I believe it's the Omnia Partners Purchasing Cooperative. So they went out and did a survey of all of our different meters, and they identified 22 meters across the district that would be candidates for this type of project. So from that, and when I say candidates, that means that they're basically operating at 94% or lower. Some we had as low as 76%. So those were definitely candidates. So they put together a pricing proposal with their installation group, which is Hill House Power Solutions. And they came back with a cost estimate for the project of right around $400,000. We had estimated somewhere between $350 and $450. So we're right there in the middle, but it's right at $400,000 for the project. That does include a 3% contingency. So if for whatever reason, if we don't end up using that, then that roughly $12,000, $13,000 we would just not be charged on that final invoice. But again, it's right around $400,000. We'll be bringing it back or I'll be bringing it back in November for you to consider possibly approving and moving forward with. This is something it takes a little bit of time to go through because they actually do have to, they'll end up bringing the entire school down. They have to bring the entire school power down in order to, it doesn't take long, probably 4 or 5 hours, but then they put these capacitors in and then they bring the school back up, and then hopefully the goal there is that they will operate at or above 95% going forward. So these capacitors have a lifespan of about 18 to 20 years. And there's not really any maintenance that goes on with them. And so from what we're told from both Gray Bar and then talking with our own master electricians and in district, that's accurate, that capacitors don't really have a lot of maintenance. If they are going to fail, they'll fail within the first year or two. So within your exhibit, we did request to have an extended warranty. It comes with a 1-year warranty on the capacitor and the labor, but we asked if the board so chooses, if you do approve this project and you want to extend that warranty, then pricing is on there. It's basically runs about $6,300 a year. So if you want to go with a 2-year, it'll just the first year's included, but then 2 years it'll be 63, and then it basically just you add another $6,300 for each year that you want to add on to it. Again, that's not required. That's just an option that we wanted to put on there if you guys wanted to look at that as well. So again, this will be brought back in November for your consideration and approval. But if you have questions now, I can answer, or I can answer them in November.
What's the feeling on the warranty part of it? What would you be bringing back, you think, or is that still under consideration?
Like I said, in talking with our master electricians with when they potentially will fail, I mean, I think if we wanted to add just 1 year to bring it to a 2-year, I think that would be reasonable, reasonable expense. So, I mean, we're looking at, at a $400,000 tag on the project, with us currently spending $100,000 in fees each year. I mean, the ROI on this is right around 4 years. And then the capacitor should last somewhere between 18 and 20. So we should be, I
don't see anywhere how much they cost. How much are they each?
Each capacitor?
Yeah, not what they, because that's what you have the insurance on, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and they're different because it's all based on power. So it depends on, they have different sizes. So that's why they have to go in and actually see how it's currently, what the load is. And then they see how it's currently operating, the efficiency level. And then that determines the size of the capacitor that they put in. So they come in all various different sizes. So each
warranty is on the whole, doesn't matter what size capacitor
correct.
It is. It's just a general warranty.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anything else?
And I think I asked this before, I don't remember how you answered it. So you said it's like a 20-year life, but do they maintain that high level of performance of it? Or do we fall at some point over the life of the capacitor, drop back down below and have to pay penalties?
The way that they're supposed to, I mean, again, everything is, just the lifespan of things sometimes varies, but they are supposed to maintain that when they fail, they'll fail. So, I mean, there may be a slight decline, and then that may start telling you that failure is imminent, kind of a thing. But yeah, it should be the research that has been done and the things that I've read so far, and then both through Hill House and Gray Bar, they're saying they're getting, minimum, they're getting 16, 17 years out of it. I mean, so 18 to 20 is the goal that they would like to see or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty much, I won't say all or none 100% of the time, but that is the way that they're designed.
The warranty would throw you, is the warranty just that it functions, or is that it functions above the 95%?
That's not actually part of the warranty. That's just part of they will come out, and if they don't reach 95, that is part of the agreement that we have with them. So it's not necessarily the warranty part. The warranty part is just for more of failure or installation.
But there is some sort of a guarantee.
Yes, but if they come in, I had previous experience elsewhere we had that exact thing. They installed the capacitor. It only brought it up to about 92%. We had them come back out, and then they had to kind of tweak it a little bit, put a different size capacitor in, and then at that point, it operated above the 95, so.
That was 22 meters. How many do we have? Is this something we should be considering putting in the budget going forward?
Well, they've already looked at all schools, and so this is, I mean, we have more than 22 meters, but these are the ones that, there's some meters that don't, it wouldn't be advantageous for us to do, whether it be that, even if they are still operating at below 95%, when they do when you do the analysis of what we're being charged on a surcharge versus the cost to change it out, if it's like an older system or an older school, or, just the draw, the load on it, the demand is not high enough. But yeah, this is something that we could certainly start looking at, from a new school standpoint. They don't recommend that you put it in at the very beginning because you really don't know how things are going to operate based on the equipment that you put in there. But what their recommendation is on like a new school would be just to make sure that you leave space for potentially a capacitor, let's say, something about this size, that you just leave space in your electrical or your mechanical room for a capacitor for future use if needed. And then that way the addition of that is very simple. Anything else?
Thank you, Dwayne.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next is the Human Resources Report. It's a student transfer report. Chandra Turrentine, welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, President Newcomb, Dr. Chadwell, and to all the members of the board and to the leadership team that's present here. I'm here to give you some information about our 2021-2022 fall semester transfer request application window. The window opened actually on March the 8th and it closed on March 9th. This was done in order to provide sensitivity to parents and families and to also to be respectful of the enrollment window. Transfer request applications were submitted through Family Access and they were also submitted through the Student Services Office. The transfer request application included information about board policies FDA and FDB. That's very important because this year we implemented a transfer agreement. This is for those that live outside of the district, and so they're transferring to the district like our employees. And so that outlines our expectations, and it also outlines our transfer criteria eligibility. The Student Services Department collaborated with Human Resources. We also collaborated with the Chief of Operations, and we reviewed staffing, demographers, information, faculty, facility capacity, current and student enrollment, and we identified 8 campuses that at that time had availability for transfers. And those were Copper Creek, Lake Country, Parkview, Saginaw Elementary, Willow Creek Elementary, Ed Wilkie Middle School, Prairie Vista Middle School, and Saginaw High School. The Student Services and the Technology Department worked hand in hand, and I really just have to say how phenomenal it was to work with Mr. Sean Lee on ensuring that Family Access was up and running on the day, and that date we had no issues. It was working outstanding and phenomenal. And then we also, looking at the window, we were able to ensure that we processed 560 transfer requests, and all of that information was presented out to families either in written notification. The wonderful thing that I do want to say about it is because of COVID, we still continue to take late transfers all the way through the month of August. And that was through to extenuating circumstances, planned and or unplanned moves. Especially job and job loss. As I said before, we processed a total of 560. That is up from last year. We processed a total of 544 for last year. For secondary, we approved 99% of all applications that were submitted, and for elementary, we approved 98% of the transfer applications that were submitted. Any questions?
So to the schools that you didn't mention, but there were transfers approved, but Is that correct? So like, 17 went to Lake Country. They obviously came from somewhere else in the district.
So,
So
okay,
that
so,
create a vacuum there that allowed transfers. Is there a juggling act there, I guess, is my question?
so at Lake Country, there was a little bit more than that because we had more employees that were being transferred to Lake Country. And then it was kind of an interesting process. We had more, but a lot of parents were already zoned for Lake Country, but they put in for Lake Country. So we approved 17 because it was 17 what I call authentic and real transfers that were related to parents that really wanted their students to go there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is currently 6 PM on October 25th, 2021. This board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in a closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meeting Act: 551.071, private consultation with board's attorney; 551.072, for the purpose of deliberating a purchase or exchange of valued real property; 551.074, for the purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, reassignment of duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee; 551.075, for the purpose of deliberations regarding deployment or specific occasions for security; 551.082, for considering discipline of a public school child or complaint or charge against personnel; and 551.0821, to discuss specific personal identifying information about a student. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening the public meeting on October 25th, 2021 at 7:05 p.m. and will now consider the subject set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome everyone to our October meeting, and to start our meeting off, we have Eagle Mountain Elementary. Mr. Jason Beatty, welcome. I'm an alumni of your school there. So.
Yes, sir. That puts up, I think we have your picture on the wall as a famous alumni up there. So, but thank you for having us today. Is just to we'll introduce our fifth graders. We have fifth graders with us today that are part of our student council, and they have leadership opportunities. As we've been excited about this year coming back, is that those leadership opportunities have opened up again a lot more than what they have this past year. So as we're going through this is each morning we have students out there greeting and opening doors, and some of them are holding doors open, some of them are volunteering in teachers' classrooms, helping out with lost and found. And before we introduce those students, I do want to recognize the two adults that help this. Is without their sponsorship is our Counselor Shelley Kiefer is where she's continued this program since she's been there for the past 5 years. And then also Laura Elston, who is one of our fifth grade teachers, is that she helps with that sponsorship. So again, these are our fifth grade students, and I'd like to introduce Hudson Luke, and he is the son of Robert and Christine Luke. He is a part of the EME Student Council in the PACE program. Some of his interests are football, sports, taekwondo, and reading, and he is a part of our accelerated math program. Our next student is Saila Andrade, and Saila Andrade is the daughter of Gabriel and Ashley, and she is in our EME Student Council. She enjoys soccer and golf and serves at her church. Hendrix Langdon. Parents are Brandon and Megan. And he's a part of our student council. He loves sports, but especially football. Gabriel Garcia, son of Todd and Rowena, he's in our student council. He's also a part of the GTMA Leadership Taekwondo program and a member of the First Tee Golf Association. He enjoys golf, taekwondo, electronics building, and coding electronics. Delaney O'Brien, daughter of Aaron and Emily. She's a part of our student council, but also is one of our Eagle singers. She enjoys playing roadblocks, taekwondo, singing, and musical. She is an intermediate level in taekwondo. And so these are our student council members that we've brought with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honoring the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
And if you'll take a moment for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Thank you again for having us out tonight.
All right, thank you, Eagles. Thank you, parents, for bringing them. We do have some special introductions. First will be an Education Services Department introduction. Dr. Barker.
Good evening, board. I'm so excited to introduce to you three new leaders to EMS, to their roles. Maybe not new as leaders in EMS ISD, but definitely new to their roles. Let me start with Dr. Audrey Arnold. Dr. Arnold, would you come forward? She is joined tonight with her husband, Dr. Hank Arnold, as well. Give a big wave to everyone. Thank you. You know, Dr. Arnold is very well known in our district. She has led the Owls, the Parliament of the Owls, for the past 6 years as principal of Lake Point Elementary. And her experience is vast, from an English teacher, kindred hearts here, to a diagnostician, assistant deputy superintendent, and superintendent. She received her doctorate in education from Texas Christian University, so she is a horned frog, her master's in education from the Citadel, and her Bachelor of Science from the Baptist College of Charleston. So she got around in that education. Well, we're excited about that. She and her husband are longtime residents of Eagle Mountain, and we are just so excited to have her serve as our new Executive Director of Elementary. Thank you, Dr. Arnold. She'll be transitioning to that. She is already transitioning to that role, but begins full-time 1 week from today. So we're excited about that. Our second introduction tonight has kind of been raised in EMS ISD. Miss Kimberly Harmon, would you come forward? Joining Miss Harmon tonight is her mother, Miss Darla Scroggins, and her husband, Hank Harmon. I'll do the big wave. Thank you. So, standing beside me, Miss Harmon is our new principal for Copper Creek Elementary. She's leading the Cowboys. We're super excited to have her lead the Creek. She was the original member of the TCU Fellows Program and came to us serving as first a teacher and educator, and then moved into the role of assistant principal in Gilliland Elementary, helped open Copper Creek, and now she's taking the reign for the Cowboys, and we're excited to have her. She, of course, is a TCU graduate, and she is currently working on that doctorate with the Horned Frog. So thank you, Ms. Harmon, for leading as our new principal of Copper Creek. Thank you. My last introduction tonight, I'm super excited to get to introduce Mr. Mark Hart. Mr. Mark Hart, and have your children stand up and wife, if you would, and do the way. We have joining Mr. Mark Hart with us, his wife Heather, his daughter Finley, and his son Alan. Excited to have Mark joining us as the new Director of Counseling. Mark and I have known each other for many, many years when we worked together when he was a math teacher. He brings 19 years of education to this new role of Director of Counseling and Campus Support. He has served here in EMS ISD as the lead counselor for Chisholm Trail High School, opening that school as one of the originals. In February of 2012, he started here. He received his bachelor's degree from McMurray University in 2002, his Master of Science degree from Texas Wesleyan University in 2009, and he is super excited to continue to serve children in his new role as Director of Counseling and the counselors as well. Thank you, Mark. And he is transitioning, doing both roles as lead counselor of Chisholm Trail and Director of Counseling, but we expect him to be full-time, hopefully next Monday.
I will, I'd like to say one thing. I was the athletic director when we opened Chisholm Trail High School, and Mark came in, and I'm telling you, in my 35 years in the school business, he's the best counselor that I've ever seen in the school business.
We think he's pretty good too.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. We also have some special introductions from the Human Resource Department. Dr. Maria Gamel. Welcome.
Good evening. President Newcomb, Dr. Chadwell, Board of Trustees. Super excited to introduce Mr. Christopher Mogan. I'd like you to come on forward here. He is joining us with 23 years in public education. He most recently comes to us from Decatur ISD, where he served as the Director of Student Services in Central Administration. He has 16 years of experience on the campus and at the district administrative level. A former coach and teacher. He's going to serve us well as an Assistant Director of Human Resources, working primarily with our secondary schools. He's a graduate of Plano ISD. He received his bachelor's from Oklahoma Baptist University and his master's from the University of North Texas. He and his wife, Christine, who's also a high school counselor, they have 2 children, Bailey and Hunter. So welcome.
Welcome to the new employees who've joined us and the ones who have been here a long time. We appreciate all of you taking these new roles of responsibility. And you are welcome to listen. We're going back to reports, or you are welcome to go home. Just giving you permission. You do whatever you want. But we're going to go to report F. So we've got 3 reports still. The first one is the Education Services Report, and it is the 2022-2023 school calendar approval timeline. Dr. Barnes.
Yes, it is that time again for us to take a look at the next school calendar for 22-23. We will be following the same timeline as we have in the past. And I'm very excited to say, due to your support these last 3 years with helping us adjust our school calendar, we will be presenting a draft to our DPAC and also to our campuses that mimics this school year's calendar. We have received a great feedback concerning that, with your support of the additional half work days for our teachers to be able to support them. Also with the semester ending prior to the holidays, and also having a holiday for the fall semester in each month. That has been some wonderful feedback. So again, I cannot thank you enough for your support. So again, I'll be presenting a calendar for 22-23 to our DPAC committee, and I will be doing that this week, and then we'll again receive more feedback from our campuses, community, and also our district advisory committee. And then I plan on, once we do get the final draft, then I will bring that to you, the proposed calendar, in December with hopeful approval in January.
All right, thank you, Dr. Barnes. I know that group works hard on it. We appreciate all of them. Next is Report G, the 21-22 Student Initiative Officer in a local agreement with the City of Fort Worth. Mr. Charles Ramirez.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Chadwell, President Newcomb, members of the board. It's always nice to see you all and go before you. So today I got 2 reports, basically the same. The first one is going to be the interlocal agreement with the City of Fort Worth, reference our SROs. The City of Fort Worth Police Department will provide 1 school resource officer for Boswell High School, Chisholm Trail High School, Watson High School, and middle schools for Creekview Middle, Prairie Vista Middle School, Ed Wilkie Middle School, and 1 for Marine Creek School. So when we look at the cost, that there was an actually increase in cost of roughly $27,000, but luckily we are offset that cost because they gave us a expense payback check of $42,000, and that was due to the COVID shutdown. So we're entitled to that refund. So, but actually brought down our costs, overall costs. So the MOU, or the interlocal agreement, looks exactly the same as last year, except what we did on your page of 89, we did actually add the roles and responsibilities of the SRO, and we put that in the contracts so we can ensure we can hold our SROs accountable for what they perform on the campus day to day. And that is the only change to the interlocal agreement with Fort Worth. Do we have any questions about Fort Worth's interlocal agreement?
I think that's great. We got some extra, or defined some duties there, and this has already been agreed to. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes. So we went back and forth, and yes, they're gonna, as soon as you guys, if you approve it next month, then we send it over to the city, but this has already been looked at through the city as well.
Okay, great.
So moving on to the next report is going to be the MOU with Saginaw Pd. Saginaw will provide SROs for our Saginaw High School, Highland Middle School, and Wayside Middle. Again, there was a slight increase of about $8,000. But again, we received a 2020 CARES Act funding credit of about $19,000. So that offsets that cost as well. For this MOU, it's exactly the same. However, we did spell out again the roles and responsibilities for Saginaw High School, and they are exactly the same roles and responsibilities for Fort Worth. And I think it's good that we actually hold them to the same standards across the board. If you have any questions about this MOU, I'd be happy to answer it at this time. So again, this is just a report. I guess you have an action item in November for this as well.
All right, thank you very
much.
much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. That concludes our report, and that takes us to our action items. The first action item is to appoint a 21-22 board nominating committee. So for 21-22, I would like to appoint Tim Daughtry again, and also Marilyn Tolbert and William Bowes to the committee. Liz and Paige, thank you so much for your couple of years, or how many ever years you were on there. We appreciate it. And Tim, you got William and Marilyn, keep them in line and
Work it.
okay, work at it. Yes, thank you all for accepting that. Next action item is to conduct a public hearing for the school first rating financial rating system in Texas. Yes, ma'am. Do we, or I thought I just appointed. We went over that last time too.
You can technically by the board operating procedures appoint, however, I think it would be better.
That's fine. No,
I think it'd be better if we did.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sure.
I move we accept the committee as just presented by Mr. Newcomb.
Second.
All right, and that committee was Tim Daughtry, William Bowes, and Dr. Marilyn Tolbert. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. You have to vote for yourself. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Becky. Next is to conduct a public hearing for the first rating financial system, and Welch. Please, wait, yeah, go ahead and give the report, Rob.
Very well. Once again, good to be in front of you, Dr. Chadwell, President Newcomb, trustees. This is our 2020-2021 school first report, as we are required to do annually. This is the 19th year of the school first program. In your packet, we provided a copy of the report. It's broken down into several areas, first being a quick overview, and then obviously we present the rating. In your packet, we have the detail of the 2021 rating, which is actually based off the 1920 data. And then for comparison, we also provide the prior year rating, which is the 2019-2020 rating, which was based off the 18-19 data. And then there's also some disclosures that we provide on behalf of the board and the superintendent as additional reporting. So just a quick recap of the program. That the school first rating is has 4 different rating levels, overall ratings. A for superior achievement, B for above standard achievement, C standard achievement, and F for substandard achievement. It's based off of several indicators that can instantly move you to the substandard, being items 1 through 4. And then there's several indicators that have limits or impose ceilings of what your score can be. And I am happy to report that for 2020-21, Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD's rating is superior achievement with a score of 96 out of possible 100. And so one of the things I want to point out is that we've been seeing the school first report or school first system increase the number of indicators over time. So last year there were 15 indicators, this year there are 19. So very quickly in the detail, I won't go through every item, but there are a couple items I did just want to touch on. The first one being number 12, which is where the one item where we did not receive full credit. And that is, was the debt per $100 of assessed property value ratio sufficient to support future debt repayments? And there's a range. We received 6 points out of the possible 100. That is not uncommon for a district growing like us and having to issue debt. We actually, the cutoff is, for the range of, for 6 points is between 7 and 10 on the ratio factor. We're at 7.18, so we're very close to having 8 points. And so anyways, this is, like I said, I feel like this is exactly where a district similar to us that's growing would be, and no indication of, to me, any concerns that that we need to address. This is just this is part of being a fast growth district. The other item is that I always keep attuned to is item 13, And was the school district's administrative cost ratio equal to or less than the threshold ratio? Again, looking at a district our size, the state's cutoff is for full credit is 8.5%. Anything above that would get partial credit up to a certain level. School district EMS ISD is at 7.6%. And so anyways, well below that 8.5% threshold. And so again, that's a area I look at to monitor efficiency and how we operate. So moving on, again, moving down to our actual rating, which is right here, we ended up with 96 out of the 100, just to recap. And so very strong rating for the current year. Again, going back to that 2019-20 data, and we continue to look at the requirements going forward that we'll have to abide by in operating for future school first criteria. They, like I said, they're continuing to make changes and enhancements, and so we look at those criteria in the future and working hard to maintain that performance of rating. So with that is all the information that we have for tonight. Again, this information is provided on the website or will be posted after the board adopts the item tonight, and we'll move forward and post that to our website as we do with all of our first ratings and other budget related actions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Welch. This time, on behalf of the Mountain Saginaw ISD, I declare an open hearing on the 2020-2021 School First Report. The hearing is open to public comment. Please step to the podium if you wish to be heard. I declare the public hearing on the 2020-2021 School First Report is closed. Please be advised the report will be posted on the district website for further public review. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
The next action item is to consider teachers' abandonment of her position without good cause and propose complaint to the State Board of Education certification for abandonment of contract.
Good evening again. On August 19, 2021, Dr. Helene Onomo resigned her position as a transition specialist at Chisholm Trail High School, requesting that September 1st, 2021 would be her last day. On August 23rd, she received a letter outlining the condition under which her resignation may be accepted is only upon the hire of a suitable replacement and the expectation that she remain in the position until it was filled. Dr. Onomo acknowledged receipt of that letter and also a receipt of that letter. On September 27th, she communicated via email that she has given her, quote, due diligence from August 24th through October 1st, and that her last day would be October 1st. Upon receiving this email, we reached out to Dr. Onomo and the district offering her a new position on multiple occasions to communicate the status of her position that she was vacating as unfilled. And to date, we still have not received a response, either from her or the district. Their recommendation is that the administration recommends that the board find that good cause did not exist under section 21.105C2 of the Texas Education Code for Dr. Helene Onomo to abandon her contract for the 21-22 school year. The board did not consent to her resignation, and that the board authorizes the superintendent to file a complaint with the State Board for Educator Certification to seek sanctions for her abandonment of her contract.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Paige and a second by Liz. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Any questions on the routine monthly reports? Seeing none, we'll move to the review of the 2021 board planning calendar, page 176 of your board book.
So, Mr. President, you'll see under operations, we'll have an additional construction update. We also will ask the representative Gold Star to return for a bus transportation update. We also will have a quarterly demographic and housing analysis. Did want to let you know that we were working on that in our leadership meeting today, not necessarily this particular report because it's not available, but the planning that we'll do in order to identify teachers for this next year. I did want to let you know that we're probably going to be moving some recommendations up into the spring so that we can get ahead of the hiring timeframe and do it earlier than we've done in previous years. So you may see some shifts in where those reports are in the spring so we can take advantage of that. Under Ed Services report, we have a district and campus improvement plans. With the 21-22 accountability ratings report, of course, that again from this last year is there's no report from last year, but we'll talk about the process and the process going into this next year. And also intent to adopt the District of Innovation plan that we've discussed before. Mr. Ramirez will speak about the police department creation update. He's been working on that. And you'll see there we also have an opportunity, as was mentioned during public hearing tonight, to act on election of members to the TAD board. And so as I receive information for candidates, I'll forward that information to you. And you'll see the rest of the items in there. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
And again, if you have something you'd like to see on the agenda or questions about that, please contact Dr. Chappell or myself. We'll move now to the consent agenda for approval.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On agenda item number D, approved 21-22 submission of class size waivers to TEA. There's quite a few of the class sizes that are high. I did talk to Dr. Parker about it earlier, but I just want to go on the record that that's something that I think we need to be very cautious about, especially in those, well, in the lower
We need
grades.
to pull it, you have to pull it out of the, which you can do. You want to pull it
Well,
out?
no, I'm more concerned about the actual numbers, K1, 2, you know.
I mean, to discuss it, you'll want to pull it out of the consent agenda, so we will
I
talk
would
about
like
it.
to,
separately.
yes.
Okay, that's
Yes,
fine,
I
no
would.
problem. Now, do we need a second for that? Don't think we do. You can pull it out. Okay, so the consent agenda, we're going to pull out item D. So we will talk about item D now. We'll vote on it separately, and then we'll go back and do the consent agenda. So let's talk about item D, to approve the 2021-2022 submission of a class size waiver to TEA. Go right ahead, Marilyn.
I'm not just agreeing about the waivers. I just want to go on record that says we need to look at how we're going to support those teachers, because when you've got, in K1, 2, 24 and rising, because we know the schools are growing. When you've got, 24 and rising in K, first, second, third, fourth, throughout, and kids are trying to catch up. I mean, we already know we have lots of tutoring needs. We know we have all those things. I just think we need to really, I think the waiver is something that we have to do because that's where we are right now. But I also think we need to consider what, additional help for those teachers, whether it be I don't know what that is. If it's a floating teacher that goes across, if there's a paraprofessional.
Well, I'm excited because we just talked about that, and well, actually the conversation started last week. So we're looking at taking an FTE we already have established, breaking it into 3 parts, several of those at the campuses that we're requesting waivers for, so that we can seek for a paraprofessional to help support the teacher in the classroom like we do in our pre-K classrooms. We feel like at this point, we're going to get some opportunities for hiring people if needed at the end of this semester. We have some really good partnerships our HR department's worked hard with, and people are reaching out to us, those elementary grades who are ready to go to work. But in the meantime, having paraprofessionals who can help support.
Okay, but it says we will indicate the reason for the requested waiver is due to financial constraints.
Yes, that is a boilerplate language because that we have in there that we've used. We probably could add to that is the availability of staff members, which is a concern. And if you look at the numbers, and especially in those in which there are 3 sections, are especially challenging because you divide them up you divide those classes. If you look at Copper Creek, 3rd grade, it's at, fourth grade. And look, you have 3 sections, it's at 23. If we were to divide that into 4 sections, all of a sudden you would go into incredibly low numbers. And so each one of these are different. Some of them, it's still a concern even when you have 4, but they're all different is my point. And so Copper Creek is an example of a faster growth school, and then some obviously are not. It just depends on the school. The 4 that you see indicated here are all fast growth, whereas before, when we've had one at Gilliland, that's a school that the numbers stay fairly the same. And so it does become a financial constraint in terms of if you just did this for all of them, because it wouldn't be reasonable, for example, to do that in every one of them because of what I mentioned. But
So with that, when you talk about, assistant help and whatever.
Provided we can hire them.
Okay, so none of this, so this doesn't come out of ESRA?
No, this is part of our general budget that we have already come to the board and asked for FTEs. We have some.
there's really two things. One is we talked about the people coming in semester, and that has to do with students graduating from college with already established relationships that are currently in internships. We already have relationships with those soon-to-be full-time teachers, and we feel comfortable with them moving into full-time roles. I will say that we have to be also very conscientious that, and this is the reason why we're looking at paras, that some people would rather stay with the same teacher with support than with somebody they don't know in the middle of the year. So we're looking at both variables and also looking at where growth is. So also we'll be working with Mr. Welch and looking at what campuses we expect to grow faster.
Well, one thing I noticed, he really missed some of the classes. I mean, like by half. The demographer projections are there on the left, and then the actual counts are there. So he may miss those anyway. We're just not aware of it unless it causes a situation like this. Because it might be hard to pinpoint exactly how many, I'll just pick one, Comanche Springs second graders there are. But he projected 71 and we ended up with 101. So that's like a whole class.
Yeah, next year he's got that projected at 140 students. So it is.
For Comanche Springs.
Comanche Springs.
It is outperforming.
Yeah.
We also have we just remember from year to year, we have had that issue, not to take away from what you just said, but this year is especially challenging because we've had the rebounding.
Yeah, this was much
It's
bigger.
compound,
Some
yeah.
of the swings
Compound.
by a particular grade were much bigger than we've seen in years past, for sure.
Yes.
And in light of the pandemic and what all they lost, and I think when Marilyn says that, she's speaking of, we're trying to make up, some lost learning in addition to teaching current day learning and then just having that support, which pleases me that we're going to support them in that way.
So again, I'm not opposed to I know we have to do the waiver, but I just want to make sure that we're looking at how can we help those teachers, because I agree, parents don't want their kids to leave and kids don't want to change classes, but those teachers need some help. We're expecting them to help those kids,
Can I say thank you for your support and that we're in the middle of Brian's presentation.
Great, thank you.
This is, thank you. It just shows your commitment to our classroom, to their academic achievement and their social emotional health as well.
Thank you, President.
Sure, if there's no more questions, I would require a motion on that. It's on page 209, the recommendation.
The recommendation is to approve the submission of the pre-kindergarten through fourth grade exemption for the state mandate 22-to-1 student-teacher ratio for the 2021-2022 school year.
Motion by Liz, second by Paige. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 6-0. Move now back to the consent agenda, which is as presented, absent item D.
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus D.
Second.
Motion by Liz, second by Paige. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. As far as board president announcements, I believe Becky had something in your packet to fill out about an upcoming meeting. It was a yellow slip, and so if you haven't turned it in, make sure you do. Turn that back in. That's all I've got. Dr. Chapman?
All right, Mr. President, y'all would go to page 233 of the packet. A number of upcoming meetings we have. Safety Advisory Committee meeting, for those that are designated to be on that committee, is November the 2nd. We also have the Fall Realtor Workshop that the Communications Department has been working on, and so we're excited about that opportunity. If you're planning on attending, please let us know. Not that you can decide that morning, but if you know ahead of time, please let us know. We'd be pleased to have you a reserved seat for that. Also, we have the EMS College Fair on November the 4th. We have the Ceremony of Remembrance. This is the first time that this event, it'll be an annual event. It's held at the Boswell High School Fine Arts Center. However, it's a district-wide event acknowledging all those individuals that have passed away in service, graduates, but also those that have passed away while students, board members, and staff members. We also have Elementary Advanced Academics Night on November the 16th. We have the Education Foundation Christmas auction on December 1st. Holiday open house, we're opening that up at the Hollenstein this year. You notice we've reduced the time just slightly. We're trying to take that into consideration so we can have an additional social distancing for those that may be concerned about coming to an event with the number of people. This room gets very full. That will give us additional space. We're also going with recorded performances that will still be our students, but they'll be done, and we'll be playing those throughout that event. And I think that's all in the schedule there. I did want to end the meeting tonight with my part, just acknowledging two individuals that have passed away. And it's heartbreaking. We've had a lot of loss. We know that in this past year. We did lose one of our teachers that has been long serving in the district, Rebecca Russell at Saginaw High School, and also one of our students this last week at Highland Middle School, Emery Robles. And I know our hearts go out to their families and those campuses. It's been very difficult. And so if we could just take a moment of silence and acknowledgement of those individuals. Thank you. One thing I just finished with saying, we are a community, and part of that is just knowing that human life is so important, and I'm glad that we're going to be doing the Ceremony of Remembrance this year, just not to forget everybody that's lost their life. And I appreciate the fact that y'all are always focused on people and everybody in this room. So again, our hearts go out to those campuses that have endured this.
Thank you. Seeing there's no further business to come before this board, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Liz, second by Paige. We're adjourned.